schools, colleges, and families, they emphasize peer-to-peer services that build confidence and success during the transition to college. College Steps is located on a growing number of college campuses across the country, including Kane University and the County College of Morris. So before I hand it over to Nancy, just to go over a couple of brief housekeeping notes. We are live on YouTube right now. The recording will be available to watch at any time after this, and the YouTube version will have both Spanish and English captions. They should be up in about 24 hours or so. We would love for you to ask questions. Please feel free to ask them as you have them. This talk is actually going to be a presentation, and then the live panel will come on and be able to discuss their experiences. So we'll probably save the questions until that point, but please feel free to ask them as you have them, and we'll make sure we get to them. And as always, we'd love to know more about you. So if you're comfortable, please feel free to tell us a little about yourself in the chat. So now Nancy is going to lead us off, and then we'll be back with the panel discussion. Thanks so much, Nancy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy. I am the Regional Director for College Steps, and I started as a Program Coordinator at the County College of Morris. And before that, I was working as a K-12 special educator for a number of years before I transitioned to the college world. Today, I'm going to be joined with by a student, Sean Killian. He's one of our amazing students at the County College of Morris. If you want to wave, Sean, for now. And we also have one of our amazing parents with us, Marnie McNanny. Her daughter is in our program at the County College of Morris as well, and she is a high school transition student. And we're also joined by Mary Beth Burt, who wears two hats. She is our instructional coordinator at CCM as well as a parent in our program. And then we also have Ashley Batista, who is our current program coordinator at College Steps. So I'm going to share my screen and talk through a few things so you can get to know College Steps and then we'll talk through what it's like to transition from high school to college. So today we're going to be discussing the transition to college, and we're going to be talking about what students and families need to know about post-secondary transitions. So today I'm going to give a brief introduction to College Steps so you know our perspective and where we're coming from and how we support many students at all of our campuses with this transition. And then we're going to review the process for transitioning from high school to college and discuss the differences that many of us experience as we make that transition, as well as the differences in high school supports versus college supports. And then we're going to break down how parents and other team members can support independence in college. And then we'll get to our panel so we can ask questions about their personal experiences with this important transition. So as we shared, we are College Steps. And we're working on college campuses, and we're supporting students to attend college as students, just like they have access to all of the college supports that any college student would. And our main goal is inclusion. So students are out in the community receiving supports from our group of peer mentors. So we're considered a community-based transition provider. So many IEP teams contract with us to provide transition services as part of the IEP. And we're creating a very student-centered approach. So we're listening to students and what their needs are, what their goals are, to create a personalized schedule and personalized plan. But we're also supporting them in accessing college life. And we're doing that by providing peer mentors. So they're a very important part of our program. We hire, train, and do background checks on other college students to provide supports on our campus. And we're going to go over how we're multidisciplinary. We're going to talk through how we support in many areas, not just the area of academic support. We are providing structured support on campus, and we're working very closely with districts, parents and families, other service providers, as well as the college campus to make sure that students are experiencing success with their transition goals. And we're currently located, of course, in New Jersey, but we're also at 12 locations throughout the East Coast. And our goal really, as I said before, is to create an authentic adult learning environment. Students in our program are experiencing the real world with a safety net. So as I shared, we work with high schools. We provide transition services through the IEP team. We work closely with districts to make sure we're an appropriate support for a student. And then many students will either participate in our program full-time or split their time between their high school and our program. Families are an important part of our team, and parents are kept up to date about how a student is progressing on the college campus. And we have mutual operating agreements with the colleges we're on the campus of. And our program coordinators like Ashley, instructional coordinators like Mary Beth are provided with offices on campus and work very closely with the CCM and Kane community and are almost a part of the campus. And then we also work with agencies that the student may already be working with. For example, DVRS or DDD, they're included as part of the team. So this is just a visual shot of the many schools that we are on across the East Coast. So we're going to transition now that you know who we are and where we're coming from, we're going to talk about the general transition to college from high school. So college is so much more than academics. An important part of college life is to see success in all 4 of these key areas. So of course, academics. Most everybody knows that you go to college to work on academic success, completing your coursework, doing job training, getting that certificate or degree. But in many recent years, what the college community is coming to understand is that is not the only key to success. Students who are socially integrated into the college community are more likely to graduate with a certificate or degree. So the social life is a big part about getting you through college. And that includes meeting new people and creating friendships, joining clubs, but also meeting the people who will have the work that you want to do one day so that you have a bigger social network to access when you're ready to go out into the world. Another important part of college life is living independently. Whether you're currently living in a dorm or in your own household, there are a lot of things you have to start doing on your own without the safety of your high school community. For example, a cafeteria on a college campus is very different than a cafeteria on a high school campus. It's an open area with lots of different people. And so learning how to navigate those sorts of high anxiety moments is an important part of living independently in college. And then also, of course, preparing for employment. We go to college so we can get a job, a higher paying job. And so we want to work on our resume and skills, such as interviewing, and also getting job experience so that we know what it's going to be like once we get out into the world. So college is more than an education. It's an opportunity for you to explore your long-term goals in all areas of the adult experience. So this is a really important, very unique time in a student's life. And any high school student transitioning to college has challenges in any one of these key areas. But it's a wonderful opportunity for growth if you can stick through it and get the support that you need. But the challenges that are associated with this can be extra difficult for students who are overcoming barriers related to managing disabilities. But it's not impossible. And I think that's something that people are coming to realize. All students can be successful in college if they have the right supports that they need, if this is important to their goals and their life and their future. So all students, all high school students have different motives for going to college. Some might want to just take a few courses to boost their skills. Others may be working actively towards a certificate or degree. Some might be just gaining experiences and meeting people, the social component of college life. And we at College Steps believe that all students should be given that opportunity. And so we're providing support to students with disabilities so that they can have that same experience of exploration and growth that any other college student would receive. So something that not many people might know is IDEA, your IEP, actually does support transition. IDEA is the law that allows all students to get their IEPs and kind of oversees education in K through 12 schools. And it actually provides funding for your school district to continue to support students until they turn 21. And many states are actually upping this to 22. So this is always changing, always developing, but it's up to the IEP team. So if you haven't had this conversation yet with your IEP team, no matter how young you are or your student is, you're going to want to check with them. What is a transition plan as my student goes on to their goals outside of high school? So another area that some people aren't as familiar with is that college supports change. They're not the same that you've been receiving in high school. And one of the big reasons for this is there's actually a change in the laws overseeing the support of people with disabilities. In high school, as I said, your services are provided under IDEA. The focus of IDEA is to make sure every American child receives a free and appropriate education. And so students with disabilities where that might need to look different, IDEA provides those IEPs, those modifications and accommodations to make sure all students can reach their goals in K through 12 education. When you go to college, the law that covers you is actually going to change to ADA. And so this is the American Disabilities Act. And you are changing from a focus of eligibility, a focus of entitlement to a focus of eligibility. So you are going to have to be reassessed. There is going to have to be a process. Just because you had certain accommodations in high school doesn't mean you will automatically get those in college. There's a new intake process on the college campus. And the focus there becomes from making sure students meet their individual goals to equal access and reasonable accommodation. And the other interesting and little known fact is even if you are technically in your high schools over 21 programs, you're 18 to 21, and you're receiving transition services from your IEP, you're still going to fall under ADA anytime you're on the college campus. So there are a lot of differences for an individual when they're encountering what services are available to them on the college campus. So one of those things I said is you have to reestablish eligibility. So you're going to have to research what your accessibility services or disability services office on college requires for you to receive accommodations. Another key difference is there's no modifications. So there's no changes to the curriculum or resource room settings in colleges. Some colleges might have programs that provide a alternative environment, but those aren't the degree seeking programs or certificate seeking programs that other students are accessing. So if inclusion is important to you in college and you want to get the full college experience, you are going to receive accommodations, things like extended time, taking your test and having it read aloud, but there are no modifications. So you're going to be expected to complete the same requirements that any other person in that class is completing. Another key difference is there's very strict confidentiality rules in the college setting. So the role of the Accessibility Services Office is very different than the Special Education Services Office at your high school. They support accommodations, they support access for students with disabilities, but they're not tracking student progress or providing modifications. They're also not informing professors what your disability is or what best practices might be best for you as an individual. And so students are actually responsible for self-reporting to their professors in private conversations or through the college's systems when they need extra support, what accommodations they need. And if they think it's appropriate and would like to, they can disclose their disability. But again, that is going to be the student's decision. And then also on the college level, confidentiality extends to parents. Professors aren't able to talk to parents about a student's progress. So that can be a huge shift for students and families. And so in high school, all the members of the student's IEP team has a responsibility to read and reinforce all of that documentation that's in that plan. But in college, it's changing to protecting the student's privacy. And so, like I said, professors are going to receive a very limited amount of information, and it's going to be up to the student to self-report and self-advocate when they're struggling. So this can be a huge transition. So even if you're a student who's very successful in high school, this can be a huge change for anybody. So you want to start talking about this very, very early with your IEP team, and also if you're a parent, with your student. Make sure that you know what the goals are. If college is important to you, why? What is the end goal in mind? And then you want to make sure that you're researching the Accessibility Service Office whenever you're going on college tours, whenever you're looking at the website. You really want to make sure you understand how do you apply for services and what the intake process is. You also want to work with a student and their team to start developing those self-navigation and self-advocacy pieces. If your student is on their own on campus and they have to pay the bill for their the classes, how are they going to do that? Do they feel comfortable doing something like that on their own? Does your student have email skills? Are they going to check for emails from their professor or updates if there's a snow day? Because those are going to go to them, not the parent. So even small things like that can be a huge shift for our students. You also want to evaluate the important campus resources that would be available to all students. So you want to look on their website. How easy is it to find information about accessibility services? Is it something that's buried deep in the website, or is it right there where everybody can access it easily? Are they talking about inclusive environments on their marketing materials? Are there articles in the student newspaper about the campus community? And then you also want to support your student in identifying and locating advocates. What are their support systems on campus? So who are their academic advisors? Who's in the tutoring center? Who's in the counseling center? Making sure the student's familiar with who they can go to for support while they're on campus. And then of course, organizations such as ourselves who are operating on college campuses to provide additional supports. So when anyone is looking for a college, right, it can be a huge undertaking. And our students who are struggling to manage disabilities might need a little extra support. And what information do I need before I make a commitment to a college? So the first things might be things that you already know about, the general pieces of information you can collect about a college before you go there. So one big thing is campus size, but also what are the size of the classes in your area of study? If you're someone who does really, really well in a large group setting, that's a great thing to know about yourself. But what if you do better in small group? What if that's a modification you've received in high school? Then you're going to want to find a college where your area of study, your classes are capped at 12 or 20 students. So you're not ending up in a huge lecture hall and not getting the support you need. You also want to dig around, find out about instructional resources. A big buzzword on college campuses right now is universal design. And what that does is it allows a lot more flexibility in the curriculum. If you hear a college talking about that, they recognize that they have diverse learners, not just students with disabilities, but that all students, all adults learn differently. And so they're ensuring learning opportunities that are inclusive for everyone. So students being able to take exams multiple times, classes where there are no tests, there are just projects for students to work on. Those are things you can find out before making a commitment to a college. And another thing that we want to do is we want to check in on the access to medical services. So if you're someone who needs extra support on campus or might have medical emergencies, you're going to want to meet. Is there a nurse on staff? Is there actually a paramedic team on campus? A lot of campuses have different resources depending on their size. And if you're a parent supporting a student with researching, become the person in the passenger seat, right? You want to start shifting. Many of us as parents are right now in K through 12 education in that driver's seat for their student. So you want to start shifting the reins and putting it in them to research these things and providing support along the way. And then with social and independent living, you want to be mindful about what you need. You want to be thoughtful about whether you will be successful living on campus. What does housing look like on campus? Looking at student life, clubs, and activities. As I said, if you're involved in those things on the college campus, you're more likely to succeed long term. And then a lot of college campuses are starting to figure out how to provide extra support for their freshmen, but also for specific populations. So you're going to find a lot of summer programs geared towards students who have unique needs as they're transitioning to the college environment. So for example, the Education Opportunity Fund is for first-time college students in a family, and that is their own special population, have their own unique needs, and a lot of schools have an EOF office on campus. And then of course, accessibility services and organizations such as ours that are providing specific services and support for students with disabilities. So this is a lot of information, and that's why you want to make sure you're discussing plans with your IEP team early. So if you are a freshman, it's not too early, right? If you're in middle school, it's not too early. But I also don't want anyone who is a senior to panic. Start discussing it now, make an appointment, and make sure you're having this conversation before that graduation date so you understand what your options are for receiving services between 18 and 21. Use your team. That IEP team knows your student better than anyone. So make sure you're talking to them about the options and you're working in a collaborative environment to explore all the different options. Many of your high schools will also support you in connecting with DVRS and DDD if you're eligible, but that's something you might want to start researching very early as well, because those processes can be long and tedious and involve a lot of coordination. And you're going to want to start looking into post-secondary transitional services. If you're someone who receives a lot of support through your IEP right now, you're going to want extra support in college, and that the college might not always be able to provide those same services. So you're going to want to start looking at universities and colleges who offer these services either built into their programming, or look for other nonprofits such as ours that will support students with disabilities in this transition process. So if you would like to explore more, you can use these websites. They provide a lot of information about that transition from IDEA to ADA, from the entitlement to the eligibility. These resources are a great opportunity to look into that more. And then also ahead.org, and there's also an NJ Ahead. They are a college network that gets together on a regular basis to discuss how to improve services. So they have listings of services in New Jersey or in other states if you're in that research phase. So if you're interested in learning more about college steps, we help guide you through this whole process. So we become part of the IEP team. So if this felt like a lot, that's something that you can reach out to us and we can talk through how we can support you in that transition to high school, to college from high school. Our program coordinators are there not just to support the student, but to support the whole family, the whole IEP team in this transition, and fill the gaps in support that colleges are not obligated and really aren't in a position to provide. So we have a campus program coordinator, which is Ashley on our panel, an instructional coordinator, which is Mary Beth, and they're there anytime our students are there. So if you have a student who really needs to connect with their special education case manager on a daily basis, or even their general education teacher or a counselor, we are creating that on the college campus where there really isn't embedded support such as that. You're only seeing your professor once a week. You're only seeing other college staff if you make an appointment. So we're kind of creating that daily touchstone for our students. And then of course, our peer mentors. We are blending into the school environment. Our peer mentors allow us to provide services without making students stand out. So they are a big part of our inclusion model. And as I shared, that college is more than just academics. We provide support in all of these key areas. So our mentors are able to go to class with students, but also help support them in accessing those resources that are already available on college campuses. So for example, the tutoring center. For many students with disabilities, the act of finding out about the tutoring center, making an appointment with the tutoring center, going to the tutoring center, that can be very anxiety ridden, or have a lot of things that they've never had to navigate independently. So our mentors are there to help them with that. And then our mentors also go to clubs with students. If you are a student or a parent who is worried about the social aspects of college, our mentors are kind of built-in friends who can go to college clubs with you and support you in navigating those parts of college life. And then for another big transition change for high school to college is there's not going to be a teacher every day telling you what homework you have to complete every night. There's not going to be a teacher reminding you of a project you do in 2 weeks. You receive that syllabus and you kind of have to get everything done by the deadline. And so our coordinators and our mentors are there to help teach you those skills. How do you go from having an agenda, you write in every day what the teacher tells you, right, to having to manage all of your coursework pretty much on your own. But also things like, how do I spend money on my own on campus in a public setting? How do I use the health facilities? How do I schedule a meeting with my professor? Those are all things we cover in our independent living sessions. And then all of our college campuses usually have a very active pre-employment transition service provider on campus. So campus employment, but also post-campus employment. And our mentors support our students with accessing what's already available on their campus. And so if you have any additional questions about college steps and want to talk more, we are having a webinar on Thursday, April 22nd at 4 p.m. And you can feel free to go to our website, www.collegesteps.org, and we can put that in the chat as well. And you can ask us questions specifically about college steps. But we also have our panel here today. And our lovely panelists are going to share with us what this experience was like from their perspective. So those overwhelming experience of going from being a high school student that's heavily supported to being a college student who has to be independent. And so our panelists have all experienced that personally, right? Either as their child did it or they themselves did it. But also we have our 2 staff members here who have been the support systems for students as if they've navigated this themselves. So we have Sean Killian here. He is a student I shared. He has been through this and very successfully, but not always easily, right? So he can share his experiences of what it's been like to make this transition. And then we have Marnie here, who has seen it from the parent perspective, who had to be in that planning seat, through high school to get her student ready for this. And then we also have Mary Beth and Ashley here, who have experienced this as staff members on a day-to-day basis, helping our students navigate what it's like to experience college and gain independence. So, Sean, I would love to start with you. What was your biggest challenge when transitioning from high school to college?
I think probably the workload and the change in schedule when I first went to college. It was definitely a big adjustment for me, getting used to how college classes run and going around campus and putting that into account. So I think that was definitely difficult for me at the start.
And how did you grow since your first year of college?
Well, when I first started going to college, I had no idea what I was gonna pursue at that time. I had not pursued my certificate until around my 3rd semester. I started pursuing my web development certificate. So, yep, so it does take time to explore like the choices you have. So definitely it was good to make use of that time to explore.
Great. How did your parents support you through this transition?
My mom helped me adjust to a new routine and has supported me in organizing myself. Keep up with assignments also took a while for me to grasp, but my mom was very patient with me and helped me through those struggles.
Great. And Marnie, I'm going to come to you next to get the parent perspective as well. So what was your biggest adjustment as a parent during the transition from high school services?
I think it was the giving over the driver's the wheel to our daughter. She was always eager to do so, to take the reins, but certainly our guidance and presence was more significant through high school. And I just I think we sort of had to step back, especially, I mean, the privacy issues and in terms of the communication going directly to the student. Those are, just two areas that bring you up short and are very clear from the beginning of stepping on a college campus. But having, we're very fortunate, we feel, to have been with College Steps, where there has been support for the student, but in terms of being a point of communication for the parent. And that's been very effective.
And what steps or research did you complete before you got to the decision to attend college?
Yeah, I would say I started relatively early, and Think College is a site and a resource for me, for us, in terms of identifying programs, funding, and just opportunities that were out there. And College Steps was one of those programs that rose to the top. And then we were doing great research. I think we brought some information to our case child study team, and we were positively received, and had a conversation, and then did more research. And in terms of location and level of support, we were able to learn more about College Steps and ultimately go with this program.
Yeah, I think that's a similar experience I've heard many parents share, that they had to bring the options to the table, and start the conversation there. So I'm sure that many parents on the line have experienced that throughout since kindergarten or pre-K. But yes, again, bringing the resources, the research that you and your student have provided. And I would say too, having your student start to attend those IEP meetings to begin that transition, and getting them comfortable with taking the lead in those conversations would be another piece that might be helpful, depending on your student, to start that earlier, before they get to college. Mary Beth, would you add anything to, because you're also a parent with College Steps and a staff member, would you add anything to your own personal experience about that adjustment from high school to college and how you supported your student?
Yeah, I would agree largely with what Marnie said. It's a very similar experience, except when we started, there was no program in New Jersey like College Steps. So I'd agree with you that bringing ideas to your team and doing the research, and as well talking to other parents and talking to other families, was really key in finding what you needed. And in terms of the transition of support, it is very different. It's a system change, right? So all the supports you're giving your child also change, which affect you as well and affects you guys at home. So it is good to start early, and it is good to utilize College Step supports. And I had a wonderful program coordinator in Nancy when I started, and she was really good at giving me practical support in how to turn over. What does that functionally mean? Because it's nice to say turn it over, but how do you do that? So that's what is a big help for us.
Awesome.
Sean, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
could
absolutely.
I jump in there just because I think one of the things that's been really eye-opening, our student with College Steps is our oldest, and I can see with siblings that sort of that stepping up and that filling that adult role and assuming responsibilities might happen a little bit more naturally. But we've been really well supported by College Steps in ensuring that that responsibility, that mantle of responsibility is taken on by the student. So it's the conversations that you are an adult now, and how would you react differently? Or this conversation, imagine that you were applying for a job. College is like a job. You need to take it seriously and assume that responsibility and that level of professionalism. That's the language to the student that we're sort of learning to use. And I just think it's been really effective, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm thinking too, in terms of the question of how do you do this, right? I think college is a natural environment where it's kind of pushed on you. You're kind of forced to do this because a student can't be, even if college is allowed for a paraeducator to follow a student around, college is just not possible to be successful unless the student wants it and is willing to gain independence. And I think that's one key thing we look for in college steps too, is the student's drive, their willingness to be here and deal with the challenges of college. So Sean, coming back to you, thinking about that, right? You knew you wanted to go to college. You weren't sure what you wanted to do yet, but you were able to figure it out along the way. What advice do you have for other students as they navigate the transition to college?
Probably one of the biggest things will be always be ready to get many assignments. You never know when there'll be a surprise assignment or exam from the professor. I have experienced that personally in a few classes. So make a clear study plan and use methods that would best help you study and prepare for that. And also, if you have time, join clubs and activities if you have the time. It could be a good break from the classwork and a great way to meet new people.
Yeah, that's awesome advice, Sean. I really love that. I think that this is like a classic example. I think Sean has talked a lot about assignments. I think that's the number one thing that students kind of grow and experience, is just the amount of assignments and how responsible you are for them. And I think that's another classic example where the student has to be independent in this and want to be successful, because we could all, the parent can sit down with them every night and help complete the assignment. Support team members can be there to provide reminders and talk through how to break things down. We can send a student to the tutoring center to get extra support. But at the end of the night, when it's 10 o'clock and something has to be submitted, or they have to walk the paper over to the professor, that has to be the student. No one else can do that. And that's a big piece of another natural kind of moment where we get to pass the reins on to students and guide them. Great. So let's go to Ashley now as kind of, and Mary Beth as well, as staff members of College Steps. So professional people who are on the campus daily, supporting students with disabilities navigate these changes. So Ashley, how can students prepare for this transition while they're still in their K-12 setting?
I think reaching out to all the support staff that they currently have and support members that they have, talking about college, what the goals are for college, what it's going to look like beyond college campus, talking to individuals about their experiences from college and what it was like, and then preparing is doing as much research as possible, reaching out to resources, asking questions, attending webinars as much as possible. And also a great resource too is to actually look at the campus that the student is interested in, navigate the website, see what is offered, seeing if there's somebody that they can connect with on that college level, and really just get as much information as possible out there, because it is a whole different world than high school.
Yeah, I would add to that too, for students, make sure that your voice is heard, right? In high school, the amazing part about K-12 education is if you're struggling, you have this whole SWAT team that comes and supports you to avoid failure, right? We don't, in K-12, we want you to achieve your goals. We don't want you to miss an assignment or miss an opportunity to learn. So when you're struggling with something, your parent comes in, your teachers come in, your gen ed, maybe even your principal comes in to make sure that you're successful. In college, you have to call in that SWAT team. You have to ask for support. So I think that's another key piece. You have to communicate with your team as a student, but also the support team. When that SWAT team is coming in high school, thinking to yourself, is this really needed? Is there a way we can step back and advise the student on how to handle this problem on their own? Because you know that college is important to them, keeping that end goal in mind and thinking through what this might look like in college, and should we really send in everybody to solve this problem, or can we somehow put this on the student to navigate this themselves?
We
Mary Beth,
actually-
what? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say that we have a question from
Yay.
Akil Autism Foundation, and they're wondering, and I think you and I briefly spoke about this in the past, but do you help individuals who are nonverbal? And, you know, a lot of non-speaking people use a variety of AAC, which is augmentative alternative communication. So what are your thoughts on that? And even if you do now, or if you don't yet, maybe you have some advice for people of the type of modifications they could potentially ask for.
Yeah, so nonverbal, that's a tricky one. And, you know, college is not perfect. There's a lot of advocacy that still needs to happen. And we have definitely supported students with communication difficulties, students who are sometimes difficult to understand or maybe speak in one-word answers. That is something we've been able to use our mentors and our staff to help support students on college campuses. However, we are not the college. So when we support a student, we have to help them meet with accessibility services, or even at like a campus like our Kane campus, filling out the application and making sure they're accepted into the school. And so the nonverbal piece is a tricky one for college campuses because academic integrity is so important. And I want to be cautious here too and share that I am sharing the college's perspective, right? There's some growth here that needs to happen. So I think if that is something that you're working on, scheduling those meetings early, letting accessibility services know who you are, know what technology you're using so that you can begin to engage in that conversation. Because I also know it is important for colleges to have diversity. If a student is there and can participate in the college's curriculum, then that's important to them. So scheduling those meetings, talking with people, making sure they know what technology you're using would be super important. The other thing I would share is, you know, we're mainly operating on campuses to support students in accessing the curriculum that already exists. So students in our program, like Sean, are accessing the certificate program that already exists at CCM. So Sean is in class with other students who didn't have IEPs in high school. Sean and others, all of the students who want that certificate are taking those same classes. But there are other community colleges, there are other campuses that have college experience programs that might not amount to that accredited certification, but there is employability pieces to it, there is confidence building pieces to it. And so TCNJ has a wonderful program. Bergen Community College has a wonderful program. So being really clear on what your goals are and finding those programs that will allow you to get that experience, right? There are people who are, you know, 50, 60, 70 years old who want to go back to college just for that social experience, right? For that academic stimulation to keep yourself active and in the community. And so that might actually be the goal for our students, because there's not many places where any adult can do that. A community college is an excellent resource for that. So if that's the goal, maybe looking into those other programs. But if we feel like the student can get a college certificate, can get a college degree, then it's about talking with accessibility services early and seeing what technology they allow on their campuses and in their classrooms.
Okay, very helpful.
Any other questions come through the chat?
Yeah. Okay, so from Valinda Harjano, sorry I missed the first part, but what colleges in New Jersey are involved in college steps, and are they running the program already? Any intro meetings done by these colleges? Thanks much.
So we are currently entering our 4th year at the County College of Morris, and we are entering our 2nd year at Kane. So yes, that does mean we opened during a pandemic, which is pretty awesome. Both of our campuses are incredibly welcoming and awesome places for us to be located at. And they are having a lot of virtual information sessions, if that's what the second question is about. We are also having our webinars specifically about our program. So if you're interested in learning more about Kane or CCM, you can go to their admissions page on their website. If you're interested in learning more about us, you can go to collegesteps.org. And our admissions process is open. So the way we usually operate is you apply on our website and you provide your supporting documentation, and then we interview you. And we will help guide you through the admissions process at Kane and CCM. CCM is a community college, so all students are accepted. Kane does have admissions requirements, but our students have those requirements waived so they can participate in Kane classes on the Kane campus. So I hope that answered that full question.
Yes, I think so. I guess I would add to it, New Jersey is very populated, obviously. Are there plans for all of you to kind of like grow into other county colleges around here, or like if people are looking for your sort of service and their local college doesn't have it yet, do you have any advice for how they might plant the seeds to get that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're always open to talking with colleges and finding out if we can be on campuses. Another important piece, though, a part of our longevity is having those relationships with high school. So we've heard a lot about down in South Jersey that we would be very much needed. So part of that is not just meeting with the community colleges down there, but the districts down there, and making sure that we have a pipeline to continue keeping our program open and operating. I think that Mary Beth, if you don't mind, you were an important part of getting College Steps into New Jersey. So I don't know if you want to share kind of the steps you took as a parent to make that happen.
Sure. That was we were at a transition point and we knew what we kind of wanted. I couldn't find what we needed. I did all my research and talking and Googling, and I just reached out. Number one, my daughter was active on County College of Morris campus. They were very supportive, a very nice community. So I had my eye on that. And when I reached out to College Steps, they're amazingly approachable and conversational. And they're like, yeah, we would like to get into New Jersey. And so I actually approached directly to County College of Morris, and they were open to it. So that's how I approached it, and it worked out. So.
That's great. Us parents are always good at advocating these things. Okay, we have another question from Chanel Cannon. Hello, I'm a support coordinator. When connecting you to resources, services, and programs, what is something that you would want us to know?
Can you say that again?
So they said, I'm a support coordinator. When connecting, maybe they meant when connecting others to resources, services, and programs. What is something that you would want us to know?
So service providers, that's a good question. So I think one important piece about service providers can do is, from my perspective, coaching parents on how to invite their students into the conversation. So if a service provider finds that appointments are being made and it's just between the student and the parent, talking to the parent about that as you get closer to this transition, and making sure the student's voice is heard. Some students might drag their feet to attend meetings like that. Some students might be very eager, but I think it's the goal to start inviting them into those conversations. Anybody else on the panel have advice for service providers, how they could have supported you in navigating this college experience?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, by service, if I'm a high school parent, a service provider would be
like, I guess the IEP team, the counselor.
Right. Okay. So the school. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's knowing that from age 14, right, is when a student can start attending IEPs. So just, I think that that child study team would be more student centric, inclusive of that, of fostering responsibility and goals. I think that's one thing that's really, it's super interesting when and important that school programming and any programming as the child's growing is focusing on goal setting and exploring interest, right, as well as ability. And then I've definitely seen that there's a marriage, because oftentimes there are times where what's said in a school setting isn't necessarily the exact same sort of skill set that a family is seeing. But so it is a partnership. But I think that that inclusivity is really important.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of myths out there too about what is allowed on a college campus in terms of services. Like I've heard, the misinformation that there are 504s in college. 504s are under ADA, but there's no plan in college. There's no goals unless you're working with a program like ours. There's nobody overseeing anything beyond accommodations. And even then it's up to the student to really oversee their own accommodations, request their accommodations. So I think, webinars like this one or attending other events, bringing these sorts of resources to parents and, high school case managers is important. I think that one of the hardest parts of that transition is kind of that some people call it a cliff, like you're just over a cliff and you don't know how to navigate it at all. So starting those conversations now and getting the education now.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay, so we have another one from Valinda Harjono. Do you have summer programs to facilitate the transitions?
So we don't, because we provide such individualized services during the school year. We take the summer to plan, to meet with our teams, to get everybody registered for classes. But we are, Ashley, our program coordinator at CCM, and Ariel, our program coordinator at Kane. They're not staff of the college, but they're treated as such. They're passed along emails. They're, when we're on campus, they're dropping by offices to say hi. And so we know a lot about what is happening on campus and can kind of help put those together. So for example, at Kane, we are very closely linked with their occupational therapy department. We have interns from their program, and they have a summer program. So many of our students, we are able to get them signed up for that week-long intensive as freshmen. So that's kind of how we make sure that students get what they need over the summer. But they also kind of need the summer. College is intense.
Yeah.
So they really need it. Seems like a long time, but it really isn't, right, Sean?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, another question from Michael Antonelli. Do the supports for Kane also apply to Kane Ocean?
So we support, our program coordinators are located on our campuses because our students need the presence of a professional who is trained in how to support people with disabilities on a daily basis. So Ariel, our program coordinator, is located at our Kane campus in Union. But that being said, the online courses are available to our students. So if there is a specific area of study and there are more online opportunities now, they could potentially take an online course and we could support them in that way. We would need to operate when we have a campus with multiple locations. It's kind of like opening a new program. So we would need to hire a new program coordinator and all that. And we're just not at a place right now with our Kane campus. We're going to get Union established. I know many parents have a lot of questions about the Kane campus, and it feels like it's very blended into the community, but it's actually very insular. And we work to, even though our students do have the option of going out into the community, and we want them to access the supports, that the resources that are there, like the cafeteria and so on and so forth, we're still highly supervising that. So Ashley and Ariel, our program coordinators, put together a schedule over the summer that says where students are. We make sure we're communicating with teams when we're on campus if that's going to change. And so we're all under agreement many of our students need a mentor with them from the start of the day to their end of their day, at least in that first month, but for the most part for their first year. So we're very careful about that, very mindful of what our students need. And then as they ask for more independence, to be able to go to the Starbucks across the street at Kane or so on and so forth, we're making sure to talk with the whole team about that so that we know they're making the best adult decision when it comes to things like that.
That's great. Okay, so the Akil Autism Foundation had just commented that we have 2 students already going to a community college in New Jersey, and that they can provide and train the mentors. So just a note, if anyone is wondering about AAC users. Okay, so Michelle P said, do you offer anything for Rutgers, or do you foresee ever offering anything in conjunction with Rutgers?
So we'd love to. We don't have anything right now, but I believe Rutgers has their own program or own supports built in for, is that correct? I'm not too familiar with it, but yeah. But yes, if you know someone at Rutgers and they want to talk to us, we'd love to.
Okay, and then Akil asked, can we introduce you to our community college?
Yeah, so the way you could send me an email and we could talk through that with our team, and we can help guide you in that process and make sure that it's something that a space that we're looking at, that we have that high school interest. We're pretty familiar with the lay of the land in New Jersey right now. So all of our emails are super simple. It's just our first name at College Steps. So you can feel free to email me, nancy@collegesteps.org.
Okay, perfect. And then I was just thinking, so let's say that a parent wants help like in the high school time, a parent and a student want help like during that time, but you're not yet like at a college around them. Is it still possible that they could come to you for help to get ready to go somewhere else, even though you wouldn't be able to help once they're actually there? Like, is that something that you would do, or is that just like not part of the?
Yeah, I can tackle that. And Sean, I know you have to go to class, so if you need to hop off, feel free to do that. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you
Take
so
care.
much, Sean. So what we do is we can attend the IEP meeting at any point. I myself will actually attend any New Jersey IEPs before a student has applied. So if a student is 14 and the team is considering it, and number one, the district is open to it, because it's very important to us to have a collaboration with districts to make sure they're on board with the decision. We are happy to come talk at IEP meetings or come talk to the district one-on-one about who we are and the services we provide. And then we are happy to participate in that, as any IEP team member would, in giving advice about, okay, this is what I see the student might have to do before they get to us to be successful. So that is definitely something we can do. We also have sample days. So when we're back on campus, we have days where if a team's not 100% certain college or our setting is the best next fit for their student, they can come and sample a day in the life of a CCM or Kane student. So that's another thing we provide. But in terms of coaching and our program coordinators, that is really reserved for once the student's admitted. And Ashley is actually getting ready to support our newest batch of students in the admissions process. So even though they haven't officially started with us, we're making sure they're getting registered with accessibility services and, filling out the application for CCM, all of those things that kind of happen before their official start date.
That's wonderful. I think those are the rest of the panel questions that we've had. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, I think we answered a lot today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Of course, this was so helpful. It's so interesting and good to hear about all of the options that are out there, because I think, a lot of people that there's so much information about so many things, and, it's kind of hard to parse it all out, but we really appreciate you being here and telling us about the program and all of the great things that you all do. I just wanted to tell everyone what we have coming up. March 31st, we have the new virtual normal with the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network. They give us a lot of great tips on accommodating to virtual classes and interactions and accommodations that help with that. April 7th, we have dismantling diagnostic criteria, which will be a multi-dimensional understanding of autism with Oswin Latimer. April 13th, we have workplace accommodations with the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network. And then we have a live Ask an OT with 3 OTs from Children's Specialized Hospital, which will be really great. And lastly, on April 29th, we have communication access is fundamental with Communication First. Thank you again to all of you for joining us today. We're really happy that we got to talk to you. And I hope everyone has a great day.